Steve, I want to come back to you and start talking about other codecs that are out there. You mentioned VVC at the beginning and not being ready for a live pipeline, but what are the sort of future looking considerations you're thinking about? What are the is there resolution decisions, or is there just new interesting tools in some of the new codecs that we see out there that you'd look to implement? Understand that there's not necessarily customer demand or even technology demand, but it'd be great to just hear a little bit about what your thinking is and what you're waiting for to make the right decisions in the right moment to move it into production.
Sure. So Norsk itself kind of doesn't care at a architectural level. So things like resolution, frame rate, etc. Norsk is agnostic to all of that. What a customer is mainly interested in, quality and bit rate is obviously the thing that everyone's interested in. Which sort of goes slightly at odds with the fact that I said earlier on that pretty much everyone is still H.264. I think people are nervous about starting to deliver video that maybe doesn't play. Quite a
Mm,
lot of our customers have got regulatory requirements. That means people have to be able to watch the stuff, so they're very conservative on that front. So I think things like VVC make a lot of sense. As Jan has been saying on his blog lately, I think the issue there is the playback is a problem there. Now that's not a Norse problem. We don't do playback side. We're very much on the origination production side. But of course, until you can get playback, then that ripples all the way back to the start. Where we are seeing use of AV1, ATVC much more widely is on ingest, because obviously that's much more restricted.
sure.
And could I imagine some of the newer codecs coming into play on that side of things? Absolutely, I could see that being something that will happen more aggressively than on the outbound side. Ditto with protocols like meter over quick that we were chatting about earlier. That's a place where I could see stuff like that come in, because you've got a much more constrained environment. Um, in terms of the quality itself, there's a few aspects to it. One is just the visual quality, but actually they're all pretty good if you give them the right settings. None of them are terrible. Um, there's also a lot of things around just production quality of the software. So you need even when it's software on top of hardware, even when it's an SDK, you need the thing to be reliable. If you're running a live stream, you don't get the chance to do it twice. So if the thing crashes, you've got a problem. So right back in I can go right back to the early days with the Intel Media SDK on top of QuickSync, because it's now been deprecated, so no one will be offended. But it was terrible. It leaked. It leaked memory, it leaked file handles, and every now and then it crashed. So our integration with that ended up having to take it fully out of process, and we ended up with a bunch of smarts such that even if it crashed, we could recover the mid GOP where we were and carry on with no degradation to the viewer's experience. They couldn't tell. So you could sit there and literally be playing back the video, live video coming in, live video going out, and you could just do a kill on our process that was running the QuickSync process, and you could not tell. It just carried on going. But that
So
took
you
weeks of
turn some
effort. That
bugs
was a
into a
right pain.
feature.
Sort of, yeah, yeah. In the anyone else using QuickSync probably had those bugs too, because they were driver bugs, and unless they'd done the smarts, they hadn't fixed them, so they were just going to get degradation. Um, but you don't really want to spend your effort engineering around that sort of thing. That's a
Right.
waste of time. You want to spend your effort putting on function that makes the user experience better.
You had mentioned you talked about Quick and VVC on ingest things like that. I think it's worth calling out how flexible Norsk is on sort of the in and out pieces. I know I got to see some of your demos right after NAB, and you're very flexible on both codecs and protocols you support on the inbound and even being able to set up some of the redundancies and I think that becomes critical as part of the user experience. It's a bit outside the transcode pipeline, but it definitely goes back to that viewability piece. Is there anything there you can sort of speak to for us?
Sure. So yeah, the whole idea of Norsk is to have a system that lets you, the customer, build whatever system you want to build, which is why we're agnostic on codec and protocols and formats and so on, because we don't know what you need. So we need to offer as much as you can. And importantly, give you an architecture that means when you want to add a new one, it doesn't change your whole system. So you could have a Norsk setup that's doing, a couple of SRTs in and doing a transcode and some graphic overlays and whatever, and pumping out low latency HLS to Akamai. And then you could have a change request that comes along and says, I now need some RTMP in as well. And that's fine. That's easy to do. That doesn't mean you've got to throw everything away and start again. Stuff that's coming, NDI released in NAB timescale. We are working on 2110 at the moment, so that's coming soon. And that'll work nicely with things like the ASIC-based codecs for on-prem kit. So we can be sat in a production workflow, taking 2110 off of the network, and then doing high density, high quality encodes and pushing out to the cloud systems. That's going to be quite a nice little sync up with that sort of thing going on.